Sera's hands didn't shake when she unrolled the map across the war table. They should have. 7 senior advisors stood behind her. The Alpha King sat directly across, and no one had told her she was allowed to be here. She'd told herself she was allowed. That would have to be enough. "You requested this audience yourself," High Advisor Kren said, his voice smooth as oiled leather. "That was unwise for someone of your rank." "I requested it," Sera said, pressing the corners of the parchment flat, "because the king deserves accurate information, even if his advisors don't want him to have it." The room went quiet enough to hear the fire breathe. Alpha King Kale leaned forward. She'd only seen him from a distance before, tall figure on a dais, the gold crest of the Ironville pack catching torchlight at festivals. Up close, he had a sharpness to his face that suggested constant calculation. His eyes moved across her map slowly, reading it the way you read something that contradicts what you already believe. "These boundary lines," he said, "they don't match the council records." "No," Sera said, "they don't, that's the point." Advisor Renwick stepped forward. "She's a junior cartographer, 3rd rank. She has no authority to." "She has a map," Kale said. He didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. "Let her speak." Sera had rehearsed this moment in front of a cracked mirror in her small quarters at the back of the cartography hall. She'd rehearsed it on the walk here in the cold morning air, talking to herself like a woman preparing to step off a cliff and hoping, very much, that the ground was closer than it looked. She spoke anyway. "The Northern Ridge, the territory you've been disputing with the Greystone Pack for 3 years and nearly went to war over twice. The boundary doesn't run along the creek bed." She traced the line with her finger. "It runs 12 miles east of it, along this ridgeline. I found 4 original border stones still standing, moss-covered, but intact, with the Ironville crest carved into their bases." Silence rolled through the room. "Which means," Kale said slowly, "the disputed zone is already ours. Has been yours for 60 years, since the Treaty of Asheville. There's never been anything to dispute." "That is a serious accusation," Kren said, his face carefully controlled. "I haven't accused anyone of anything," Sera said. "I've shown you where the boundary actually is. What you do with that information is your concern, not mine." She kept her eyes on the king. She was an Omega in a room full of dominant-ranked males, and she had spent 4 months in cold forests verifying every ridge and creek and stone, and she was not going to look at the floor. Kale studied the map. His jaw was tight. "How long have you worked in the cartography division?" 3 years. "Who assigned you to survey the northern sector?" "No one. I took it myself. The sector was listed as surveyed, but I couldn't find who'd done the survey or when. The record referenced a primary document that didn't exist in the archive. It bothered me enough that I went and looked." "She operated entirely outside her assigned duties," Renwick said. "That alone should." "She found what your division missed," Kale said, and the quietness of it was worse than shouting. "Or chose not to find." Renwick's mouth closed. Sera watched the calculation move behind Kale's eyes. He was putting something together, she could see it, the pieces of understanding clicking into place, and the expression that accompanied it wasn't anger. It was something colder, more measured. He stood, the entire room realigned around the movement, shoulders pulling back, eyes dropping. He walked around the table and stopped beside her, looking down at the parchment. "Show me the border stones," he said quietly. "All 4. She pointed to each marker, small, precise circles with the notation BS beside them, coordinates below in her neatest hand. "And here," she said, tracing the creek, "is where the council records put the boundary. But I found a secondary copy of the original treaty in the archive annex, a copy no one had referenced in 40 years, and it describes the boundary as the Ironville Ridge at its easternmost spur. That is this line." She tapped the ridgeline. "Not the creek, never the creek." Kale was quiet for a long moment. "Who else has seen this?" he asked. "No one. I came to you first." "Why not take it to the advisory council?" The question wasn't hostile. It was genuinely curious. He actually wanted to understand her reasoning. "Because," Sera said, "if this went to the council first, it might have disappeared, and then I might have disappeared alongside it." The advisors behind her were very still. She did not turn to look at them. Kale looked at her, really looked, the way people rarely looked at Omegas, like she was a complete person standing in front of him rather than a rank or an inconvenience. You understood the risk you were taking, he said. I understand it quite well. Were you frightened? She almost said no. Old reflex, Omegas learned early that showing vulnerability was a liability, but something in the plain directness of his question stopped the automatic denial. Yes, she said. Very. You came anyway. The truth doesn't stop being true because it's frightening to deliver. Something shifted in his expression. She couldn't name it. It wasn't quite the opening of a door, more the sound of a lock turning, slow and deliberate. He straightened to his full height and faced the advisors. I want every survey record from the northern sector pulled and cross-referenced against the treaty copy she located. I want that review conducted by the senior archivists, not this council. I want to know who commissioned the existing surveys when they were done and who approved them for the official record. Kren's face had gone the color of old ash. My king, I must protest. Noted, Kale said. The cartographer will be present for the review. Not in the corridor waiting, at the table. Sera blinked. She hadn't expected that. The advisors filed out, slowly, with the particular bearing of men who know a reckoning is coming and are trying to calculate how far they can run before it arrives. When the door shut, only Kale remained. He was still standing beside the map, looking at it. You could have sent this anonymously, he said. Most people in your position would have. I thought about it, Sera admitted. What decided you against it? She considered that honestly. She owed him an honest answer. She'd come here specifically to give him one. Anonymous information can be dismissed, she said. It needs no defense because no one is standing behind it. I needed to be here. I needed to be a person attached to this, someone present and accountable, harder to unmake than a document. He looked at her steadily. An Omega who understands that accountability is a form of protection. An Omega who understands that truth needs a spine to stand on, she said. Otherwise it falls over. The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile, close enough. What is your name? Sera Vane. He said it back slowly, like marking it somewhere internal. The council review is going to be difficult. There will be members who try to discredit your methodology, your credentials, your right to have conducted this survey at all. I know. You're prepared for that? I've been preparing for it for 4 months, she said. Every morning I almost talked myself out of making this map. I made myself keep going instead. By the time I finished, I'd already survived every argument they're going to make. He was quiet for a beat. What kept you going when you almost stopped? She glanced at the map. At 4 months of honest, careful work spread across parchment between them. I kept thinking about the border wolves, she said. Patrolling a line that's in the wrong place, holding a boundary that was never real, doing their duty as perfectly as they can based on information that someone made false. They deserve to know where they're actually standing. Kale said nothing. His expression had gone to something she couldn't fully read, waited, attentive, like a man hearing something he had needed to hear for a long time. You care about the pack, he said finally. I care about accuracy. When things are accurate, people don't get hurt by mistakes that were never theirs to make. He nodded, reached out and carefully rolled the map, treating it like what it was, something rare and worth protecting. May I keep this? I'll have it stored properly, your name on the documentation as primary surveyor. It was always meant for you, Sera said. That's why I made it. He held the rolled map for a moment, and something in his face was careful and open at once. A door standing just slightly ajar, not swung wide, but no longer locked. Get some rest, Sera Vane, he said. Tomorrow we find out who has been lying to me and for how long. I'll want you sharp. She walked out of the war room with her pulse loud in her ears and her shoulders square. And it wasn't until she reached the cold air outside the hall that she let out the breath she'd been holding for 4 months. Behind her, through the closed door, she heard the Alpha King say her name once more, quietly, to no one, the way you say something you intend to remember.